Let's look at why we need vitamin D. First of all, structural health, our musculoskeletal system. I went to school, I'm going to say early high school, with a young girl who had rickets. Now, rickets is considered a leg issue. It is from lack of vitamin D, along with a couple of other things, but a severe deficiency in vitamin D is contributing to that issue. Vitamin D is what we need to take the calcium from our gut and deposit it into our bones. So no vitamin D, no depositing calcium into our bones. Therefore, if you have things like osteopenia, osteoporosis, those sorts of bone diseases, then we're looking at needing much higher doses of vitamin D than the average person. So we also need vitamin D for muscle strength and function. Our muscles help us balance. If we don't have enough vitamin D, that our muscles are stable and we can retain our balance, we're going to fall over much more often. Not ideal. This is a really big reason why people with lipedema would need extra vitamin D, because balance is often compromised with the hypermobile joints and the extra weight we carry. It's easy to fall over. A deficiency from the body perspective also looks like achiness in the pelvis, the lower back, the hips, and the upper thighs. So all this sort of trunky, lower trunk area, if you get aches and pains there, I know it's hard to sort of differentiate between, is it lipedema pain or is it a deficiency in something pain? And I don't know how you do that, but it is something to be aware of, that low vitamin D will cause this achiness in this area. So maybe it's something that if you took vitamin D and it went away, then you would know it was not lipedema. We also need vitamin D for the immune system and for inflammation. There's that word. So I know from the immune system perspective, I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease. So I need vitamin D for that. And thyroid disease and lipedema are both inflammatory diseases. They both cause inflammation and they're made worse by inflammation. So vitamin D is a key vitamin or prohormone for me and for you. From the immune system perspective, it helps to fight infections, and there is suggestions that it helps to fight cancer as well. From an inflammatory perspective, it is actually a really powerful anti-inflammatory vitamin, one that we don't pay enough attention to because there's all these studies out there on turmeric and all these other fancy things. When vitamin D, one of the things that we need every day, is actually a really powerful anti-inflammatory. We need vitamin D to regulate our mood, our insulin levels, and our general cognition and mitochondrial function. So there's a lot wrapped up in there, right? We really need this vitamin. In fact, a severe deficiency will show up cognitively with bad memory, fluctuating emotions, anxiety, depression, those kinds of things. So let's dig deeper into why vitamin D specifically for lipedema is really quite an important vitamin. And let's start with that inflammation. We've got an inflammatory disease. So anything that we can take, use, or, foster in our body that is anti-inflammatory, we've got to be all up in its business. And that's vitamin D. Vitamin D is also a fat-soluble vitamin. We need fat to absorb it, but it also lives in the fatty tissues. The larger that you are, regardless of obesity, lipedema, lymphedema, whatever the reason for the size, the bigger you are, the more vitamin D you require. Now, if you're following a keto, carnivore, low-carb type diet for lipedema, then vitamin D is another one of those nutrients that we need to help mitigate that style of eating, which we need. So don't go again, I need to drop that one out. We still need it, but we may have to supplement with vitamin D because of it. And that's because low vitamin D can increase insulin resistance. So we're trying to lower our insulin to keep our spikes down so that we don't drive the progression of lipedema. whereas low vitamin D levels can cause the opposite of that to happen and the insulin to keep rising, which then drives the lipedema. Low vitamin D levels means insulin problems. So we kind of need to make sure that the vitamin D is adequate in our body. And my favorite topic, stress. Stress causes a depletion in vitamin D. I'm going to say stress causes a depletion in every bloody thing in our body. It does so many bad things for us, yet none of us are focused enough on it. Now, the reason we need vitamin D if we're under stress is because large amounts of cortisol deplete the body of vitamin D. Not only that, it generally lowers absorption of vitamin D if we've got lots of cortisol running around in our body. So I know, right? It's just like the magnesium one. It's just crazy how much cortisol and stress can affect what we're eating. We talk about how there's lower amounts in the soils and that sort of thing, but we have a lot of issues in our body that's causing us to not even absorb what is available to us or to flush out what little we do get. From a lipedema perspective, as a kind of roundup, vitamin D is, I'd say, one of the more important things to take. I would take it above the trendy creatine and a few other things because this is like an everyday thing for us. Remembering that deficiency in vitamin D will give an achiness around the lower trunk. It will cause instability in our muscles, so we can easily fall over and lose our balance, and it causes fatigue. And we're already fatigued. For those reasons, vitamin D's got to be up there on our list. Let's talk about 3 sources of vitamin D that you have available to you. The first one, the sunshine. And it's really interesting. I thought before when I was talking, but I didn't say it, that the thing that we need the most is actually out there in the sky. That's what we need the most. But we tend to, when we become immobile and we have a lifestyle that we're in front of a computer all day, we're inside, we're working, we're doing all the things we can to survive. Not our fault, we just are. We're not out in the sunshine anymore, so we're not getting that dose of vitamin D that we need. When the vitamin D from the sun hits our skin, it is cholesterol in our skin that turns the ultraviolet light that hits our skin into vitamin D in our body. So your skin has to be exposed under the sunshine, sunbathing, bring back sunbathing in the times that aren't really bad. But it also tells you that we need cholesterol. All those people that get worried about eating carnivore and that sort of thing because of cholesterol levels, we actually need cholesterol to make vitamin D in our body. And fun fact, since I transitioned to carnivore, and even though I haven't the last few months been, true to carnivore, I don't get sunburned. Now, I'm a child who got sunburn all my life. I grew up in Queensland in Australia. Sunshine, always out in the sun, always had a red nose. I can't remember the last time I got sunburn. So there's something to do with the cholesterol levels because I've got higher cholesterol levels. And being out in the sunshine and converting that into vitamin D, I now have higher vitamin D levels than I've ever had. So it kind of all works together. And you only need 10 to 15 minutes out in that sun for that to happen. So bare your belly, bare your trunk, take your top off, leave your bra on, bra, crop, whatever. And if you sweat a little bit, if you get a little bit sweaty when that's happened, do not wipe it off. Let it dry so that it can soak into your skin. That's the key, okay? Now, if you have a darker colored skin, that means you absorb vitamin D less and melatonin could be an issue for you. That means your circadian rhythms and things like that can be a little bit skewed. So vitamin D potentially is a good supplement for you if you've got darker skin. Now, 15 minutes a day is all you need. However, if you live in countries north of 35 degrees latitude, which is kind of most of Europe, the northern states past Tennessee, I think it might be, in the United States, then you will not be getting nearly enough vitamin D from sunshine alone. You will very definitely need to supplement or eat foods high in vitamin D to counteract that. If you think that's you, I would first Google countries above 35 degrees and have a look of where you are specifically. Let's look at dietary. How can we eat vitamin D? This one's a bit trickier because there's not many food sources of vitamin D. One of the biggest and best options is eggs, egg yolks. Like the sun, aren't they? In their beautiful little package. It's like sunshine in a little parcel that you can eat. So eggs definitely has vitamin D in it, but keep in mind, if you buy caged hen eggs, then there'll be 3 times less vitamin D as if you bought the eggs from pasture-raised chickens. So there is a distinct difference. If you are looking for eggs for your vitamin D levels, get the pasture-raised ones. Oily fish is another option. Salmon, trout, mackerel, tuna, herring, they're all quite strong in flavors. I'm not a fan. I like really mild whiting fish that doesn't really taste like fish, so it kind of defeats the purpose. But if you like that kind of fish, you will get your vitamin D levels from those. And butter. Butter is another natural source of vitamin D. Amounts can fluctuate quite wildly there. But if you're using butter for your cooking instead of every other kind of oil, which is what I do, you are likely to get vitamin D in some amounts from the butter. Just try and source butter that's been made from grass-fed cows. Otherwise, you're going to have grain-fed cows and you're going to have inflammatory items in that butter. Tricky, I know, but here's a little tip. In Australia, our Woolworths butter, the everyday brand, actually comes from New Zealand cows. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've seen pictures of New Zealand lately, there is a lot of grass in New Zealand. All the cows in New Zealand are grass-fed. They don't need to supplement the cows' diets with grains because their grass is abundant. Turn over your butter no matter where you live, because usually they say now, sourced from New Zealand or sourced from wherever. If that's a country like Ireland, like New Zealand, where it's obvious that there's so much grass, it's likely that's going to be a grass-fed butter. So you don't have to buy the really expensive Kerrygold or whatever. You can just buy the ones where you know the cows have come from a country that's pretty much all grass and rain. And finally, fortified foods. There are lots of foods out there that are fortified, particularly dairy foods, cereals, orange juices, all the things. However, there's a big but there. All of those things are processed foods, and processed foods generally have all the other things in it that we don't want, that are inflammatory to the body. So I wouldn't really class that as a source of vitamin D because it will come in a carrier that gives you other kinds of issues. The third source of vitamin D is supplementation. If you want to supplement, then I would recommend a spray of vitamin D, not a tablet. Absorption. We have got compromised bodies. So any way that I can, I would look at powders, liquids, sprays, that kind of thing. Just be sure that your spray, I take a bioceuticals spray, which is vitamin D with K2, because the vitamin D grabs the calcium, but it's the vitamin K that actually helps deposit it into the bone. So you kind of need both together, which is why most supplements have both in them. I use a spray, and it's a practitioner spray because it's based on olive oil. Because remember, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, so it needs fat to be absorbed. So this spray, all you get is kind of like the taste of a spray of olive oil on your tongue, and that's kind of it. That's what I would recommend. Any way that you supplement is you get something that's really easily absorbed into your body. Be aware also with supplements, there's 2 kinds of vitamin D, D2 and D3. D2 is from plants and not as effective. D3 is the one that you need to make the improvements that we need throughout the body. Now, the recommended dosage is from 600 to 1,000 international units. However, I've seen reports of going much higher safely to be able to get the body back into a decent storage level of vitamin D. So work with a practitioner here, work with your doctor that's willing to do blood tests, although the blood test thing is still because it doesn't test what's in your storage. It doesn't test what's in your cells and your organs and all that kind of thing. It only tests what's in your blood. But with vitamin D, if you're having a blood test, and it's probably one of the most common blood tests for vitamins and minerals, whatever's in the blood is left over from what's in your organs and cells, I would say. So if you've got a decent amount left over in your blood, then I'm going to say you've got a decent amount in storage. So we often only have a little bit because the storage has taken up more than what we need. That's how we're going to find out as best we can with this kind of thing what kind of levels we've got. From a safety perspective, too much vitamin D, I wouldn't go over 4,000 international units daily for a safety level, because any fat soluble vitamin is going to stay in your body. It's water soluble, you can pee it right out, it's no big deal. You can't kind of overdose on it. Fat soluble, you can. Vitamin D, people seem to be quite low in it, so you don't hear much about that. But a toxicity level can cause hypercalcemia, so too much calcium in the blood. You can have symptoms like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, and potentially kidney stones and cardiac issues. I have seen some people that just have it once a week in a larger dose. I wouldn't do that. Could be just too much all at once. I would stick to having a little bit every day rather than one big hit. If you're working with somebody that suggests just one big hit on a Sunday or a Saturday for ease of memory, I would say work on your memory and set yourself an alarm, because it's just better for your body to have a little bit at a time rather than one massive go of it that could potentially cause toxicity and make you not feel well. Now, there's always cofactors with every vitamin, mineral, etc., because nothing ever works on its own. We forget that because we're in this world now where we isolate something and we say, oh, turmeric makes everything less inflamed, so let's take out the curcumin from the middle of it and we can just give people that. Whereas generally it's everything that's in the turmeric that contributes to the inflammation and the good stuff that it does for our bodies. That was just an example. So vitamin D is no different. We need other things so that vitamin D does what it needs to do in our body. One of those things is magnesium. You can check out my magnesium video after this if you haven't already watched it to understand what they do for each other. But basically we need magnesium for vitamin D to work, and we need vitamin D to be activated for magnesium to be absorbed. Loops. So many loops. So the vitamin K2 that I've already mentioned, that helps vitamin D get into the bones where we need it. Otherwise, it will end up being deposited on our arteries and our soft tissues, causing stiffening where it doesn't belong. So without that vitamin K2, we've got problems. Calcium needs to be in our bones, not everywhere else. And zinc. We need zinc for the vitamin D receptor to work effectively and to absorb the vitamin. So we need the zinc, we need the magnesium, and we need the vitamin K2. So what now? Now we find vitamin D would be the easy first step in some kind of spray form that is based on olive oil or coconut oil, not one of the seed oils. And you want that spray to also have vitamin K2 in it, so D3 and K2. And start taking a little spray every single day. You can start swapping out any seed oils you may still eat for or consume or cook in for butter. And you can up your egg intake. One of the best ways to heighten the amount of vitamins and minerals in that sunshiny yellow egg yolk is to have it soft. Okay, if you're not somebody that enjoys the soft runny yolk, you need to learn. That is how we keep it so that we get the most vitamins and minerals out of the yolk, is to not cook it hard. And finally, don't forget the sunshine. If you've got sunshine out there, get out there first thing in the morning before the UV light turns into the dangerous form, and put your little eyes up into the sun and thank the world that you exist in it.